The first VHS Massacre had a lot of podcasting, and we did a lot of interviews that way, and we used the interviews in the movie. But there are a few sections in this, 1 or 2 sections in this, that we had to make just for this documentary to have the story make sense. Like, we needed this segment right here because Ken had shot footage from Shitstorm. So we had the raw footage, but just cutting it in didn't make any sense. So Ken and I were like, okay, hey, look, we need to have a podcast explaining what this shoot was. You know, when you finish your documentary, try to get a dozen people together and screen it. It's like test screening, right? But just you could do it in your house and have some people over and give you feedback. Or send people links and ask for notes. And try to get about a dozen people to give you notes. If your friends or other people, professionals, give you notes, their solutions are not always great. And maybe not even their diagnosis is great. Take note of what part of the film they're having an issue with, and then look at that, and then probably you'll find your own solution. So a lot of what I'm saying is their solutions are not always good. When you get notes on something, the people's solutions are not always very good. Look at the problem you think they're having with it, and then you find your own better solutions. So notes are really important. They're hard to take at first. You either take the notes and get the feedback and make the changes before the film comes out, or you will hear that same criticism from professional reviewers, and that does not feel good. You have to be an audience advocate. You can't do it 100% for yourself. You have to test the film to see if it's watchable, to see if it makes sense. Because you can say you have an artistic vision, but if the movie doesn't make sense, no one is going to care about it. I'm sure there are filmmakers out there that don't need notes, but you could probably count them on one hand. So the rest of the folks like you and I have to take our medicine and listen to feedback and make the changes that we think are correct. It's rarely fun, but you got to do it. So in regard to distribution, there are a number of companies like Troma Entertainment, Full Moon, SRS Video, there's Glass Eye, there's Wild Eye, there's SRS, there's MVD. The two I'm using right now is MVD Group and Troma. Both are good for their own reasons. Troma is like the East Coast Roger Corman. They got serious street cred. If you put a horror movie out through them, people know what that is. Think of it in regard to the record label. It's like the coolest indie record label, right? Okay, so there's the studio system, and those are large. Like A24 is not independent. They're a $1 billion company. You can't count them. And then there's the major studios like Warner and Universal, which are all mostly owned by Silicon Valley at this point. But we're talking about independent distribution companies. So NVD is very good. They're really honest. They're sort of a middle person. You host your film with them, and they take a certain percentage, and then they pay you out. So right away, you're making little pennies here and there. You're probably not going to get rich, but everything is very transparent. And then other distribution companies are more like you sign a deal. Once they make back a certain amount of money, then you split revenue with them. So, and that can be, you just have to be aware of those deals that you may never get checks because they may never reach their threshold. But if they're a brick and mortar distribution company, they have to keep the lights on. And so the truth is, a lot of independent film just doesn't make money. So you have to be prepared for that. Never spend money you don't have. Never, throw everything on credit cards. Never, try to figure out a way to do everything for free. Typically, if I had a finished version of the film, I would take it to a festival circuit, put it through all the film festivals, enter as many as you can. Film Freeway, you'll see a number of free ones. So enter as many free ones that apply to the film as possible. And then if you can throw some money into it, try to throw some money into it. If you can enter 50 film festivals, that's amazing. A lot of people can't, it's expensive. But you can find probably 15 free ones, and then maybe you can pay for 10 or 15 other ones, get up to like 30. You could vet your film that way. Let's say you win some awards, get some selections, maybe even the festival gives you some quotes, and you build a press kit based upon that. Don't try to get reviews on your film early, because if they're bad, you'll ruin your distribution possibilities. And that happened to me on London Betty From there, you can then research distribution companies and then submit to them. A lot of them, if you dig around their website, you can actually find a submission address. You can typically find a mailing address or an email address for submitting feature-length films. You submit your film, you wait a couple weeks, and you follow up. I will say it took a number of films for me to be taken even halfway seriously. When I was a teenager, I made this thing called Thrill Kill Jack with Mike Oransky and Phil Garrett, and it was an 80-minute VHS movie. It was terrible. But we tried to get it distribution and never quite got there. And then so we're like, let's make a drama. So we made a 16mm feature-length drama called Everything Moves Alone. It was 90 minutes, and it was sort of an attempt to be like a Bottle Rocket or like an Alexander Payne movie or something. Some good reviews, some bad reviews, but it didn't go anywhere. No one wanted it. It was like a 16mm drama with no stars in it. Very difficult to deal with. And when the New York Times bashed us, that kind of like wrecked me. But I love film so much, I didn't want to be left out. And so I was like, well, I'm going to make a B movie. So I made this thing called Land of College Prophets, or it was also called Fountain of Death in Spain and Italy. And it was like this weird backyard comic book type of thing. All the characters had outfits, and there was a giant haunted wishing well, and so it was a very weird movie. But at the time, it was very Troma-esque, and people liked it a lot. So it won like 7 or 8 awards. It got distributed by York Entertainment, and that was the distribution by York Entertainment was Mike Oransky, I think, submitted to York, and they came back and they said, we'll take it. And we had a couple other possibilities. We actually could have gone with Troma, and maybe we should have. I'm not sure. But I suppose it worked out great because the VHS Massacre movies were put out through Troma. So think of it in terms of, if you count Thrill Kill Jack and Everything Moves Alone, Land of College Prophets was the 3rd feature-length film I had to do to, quote, get into the direct-to-video industry. So look, you got to be stubborn as fuck. I think that's how I got through. After that, I made London Betty. That got to Maverick Entertainment, got into the blockbusters at the time, and then eventually Land of College Prophets got on Netflix, like the earliest form of Netflix. So at that point, I was a filmmaker. Now, given no one still knew who I was. Like, it's no one on the street would ever recognize you, So you get to a certain level, and then you realize, well, you're not really anywhere at all, So we did Mark of the Beast, which I did re-released as Exorcism of Fleete Marish this year. And that version of the film, the newest version, it's gone really well. And I think that's like my Blade Runner final cut. Exorcism of Fleete Marish. It's free on Horror Central if you want to check it out.